the president of the Guides Association of New York City, Mr. Michael Dillinger.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you know, every day tour guides celebrate New York City. And tonight, we get a chance to celebrate and honor the people who make New York City terrific. We often hear at award ceremonies, people say things like, oh, I'm so humbled by this. And we're always like, wait, somebody just told you were the best. Why is that humble? That's not humble. But I understand what they mean because, you know, they're not, their work is their passion is their work. They're not thinking about these award ceremonies or these shiny trophies. They're just thinking about how they're going to do the best that they can be in their particular job, whatever that is, you know. Tour guides, of course, have a great passion for New York City, and all of the people that we honor tonight have as well, each in their own way. So it's pretty exciting to be here. And before we start, we thought it would be great to take a look at our colleagues and how they practice their magic. Ladies and gentlemen, the guide at work. Behind-the-scenes creative artists of our show, who have been good friends of our host for many years, a member of GANYC Apple Awards Committee, Ms. Susan Solar, and her husband, Mr. Tobias Nascimento.
Good evening. He has 2 Tony Awards, one for Outstanding Leading Actor in a Musical, and one as a recipient of the Isabel Stevenson Award for Humanitarian Effort, plus an additional 3 nominations.
He is a winner of the Drum at Desk Award with an additional 4 nominations, and he is a 2016 inductee into the Theater Hall of Fame. And you should hear him sing in Portuguese. He is my best and favorite student.
The New York Times has called him Broadway's last leading man, but tonight he's our leading man.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brian Stokes Mitchell.
Disappear, they always run out, those musicians, you can never trust them. Hey, welcome everybody, how are you all tonight? Good. What a beautiful looking bunch of people you are here. I'm so honored to be here. Tobias and Susan, thank you for that wonderful introduction as well, and for what you said. Although, you know, I don't know how true it is that I'm your favorite Portuguese student, but I will say unequivocally you're my favorite Portuguese teacher, and thank you for that. But he got me started. I wanted to sing some Brazilian tunes and put them into my act a few years ago. Only one problem, I didn't know Portuguese, so somebody gave me Tobias's name, and I started singing Epau, Eperai, fim do caminho, eu estou te toco, sozinho, começar de novo. So things like that. So that was great. And so we actually immediately we became great friends, and we've been just having a great time ever since. And Susan, of course, the last time I saw them was about a year and a half ago at Shuffle Along. They had come to see me in Shuffle Along. Did anybody get to see Shuffle Along? Great show. It was a great show. And they came backstage, and I hadn't seen them for a while, and I was asking them what's going on, and Susan was all excited, and I said, what's going on? She said, I just got my license today to be a New York City guide. It was that very day that she came to see the show. I said, wow, Susan, that's fantastic, that's wonderful, congratulations. What is a New York City guide? And she proceeded to tell me what a New York City guide was and what a New York City guide did. And she told me so well that I'm here today. That's why I stand before you now. So you have Susan and Tobias to thank for that. So thank you very much. It's a joy to be here with all of you. Let's see, I might put my cheaters on. You know, it's terrible too because I asked them to put the script in a 20-point font. I now have 24-point eyes, unfortunately, so I think I'm going to use my cheaters. Oh, look, there's words on the page. That's fantastic. It sucks getting old, doesn't it? As my aunt said, getting old's not for sissies, and that's true. So, my Aunt Tootie. So, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, honored guests, welcome to the 4th Annual Apple Awards ceremony for the Guides Association of New York City! And we really have a terrific show tonight. We have a lucky 13 trophies to give out, 11 competitive awards, and 2 honorary awards. And the founder of the feast, producer of the evening, and chair of the awards committee is GANYC's very own Adrian Cooper. In this city that is a magnet for so many, home to Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty, Adrian fits a very interesting category. She is actually a native New Yorker. Who else is a native New Yorker here? Raise your hand. Oh yeah, number, wow, a whole bunch of people. That's fantastic. A lot of friends of GANYC that are here today, and we just heard from President Michael Dillinger, of course. He's another native New Yorker. And Vice President Emma Guest Gonzalez is here. Where are you? Where are you? Raise your hand. Where is she? She's back there as well. She's not a native New Yorker, she's from Connecticut. But she couldn't find 150 museums in her part of Connecticut, so she came here to New York. I'm from Seattle, so I'm not Seattle. Yeah, beautiful Seattle. And there's no Broadway in Seattle, so I had to come here, of course. Although I do tell people I was born on Broadway because the hospital that I was born in was actually, it's on Broadway, is the name of the street. So I know it's a cheat, but it's, not really a lot. So Billy Mitchell is here tonight. My brother Mitchell, and he's getting a big prize, by the way. Billy is almost a native New Yorker, but not quite. He's from Mount Vernon. But the Apollo Theater is not in Mount Vernon, so he came to New York. This is not to say that other places, of course, aren't beautiful and wonderful places as well, because they are, and many people are very happy where they come from. But there is only one New York City, right? There are really only two kinds of New Yorkers, those that are lucky enough to be born here and those that are smart enough to show up. So now that we've given the natives their chance, who here is from somewhere other than New York City? Excellent, yeah, fantastic. The word home is really what we're all about tonight. We're here to celebrate this city and we're here to celebrate this community. And we're here to come together as one big family of New Yorkers who have made it our mission to roll out the welcome mat and show our honored guests the best hospitality that we can. And speaking of hospitality, how were the cocktails? Yeah, you can always tell the cocktails are good by the woo! Yeah, you hear that when the people are happy with the cocktail, so that's fantastic. And of course, the secret to a good cocktail is good food and beverage sponsors. So I'd like to give a shout out now to Azalea, the Cocktail Parlor, Cosi and Ricardo's Bakery for the food, Kristen's New York Tours and Gilletta Cantina Club for the wine, and Bronx Beer Hall for the beer. Let's also give a big hand to our core sponsors, City Tales and Tour Me, our seedling sponsors, Brooklyn Diner and Cafe Fiorello. Also, Friends of Maple Grove Cemetery, Levy's Unique New York, yeah, y'all. Luna Park in Coney Island, and Tourist New App. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. We quite literally could not have done it without you. So, y'all ready for some trophies now? Okay. Our first award is for Outstanding Achievement in support of New York City culture. We all know that culture is everything. No culture, no community. No community, no city. That is why the arts in education need to stop being treated like a luxury, right? And start being recognized as a necessity. I talk about that all the time, long after civilizations die, what's left? The art, right? You go to Iran, Iraq, you see the pyramids, you go to Machu Picchu, and what's left there is the work of the artists, and it's really, really important, and hopefully that will be the mark of all of us New Yorkers as well, many, many thousands and thousands of years from now. But I digress. To present the award for culture is a Drama Desk award-winning vocalist for Queen Esther's Stage Door Canteen and an Adelco Award nominee for Harlem Song. He is the lead saxophonist and director of the Rakeem Walker Project and music director for Marcus Samuelson's Red Rooster and Jenny's Supper Club. Please welcome Queen Esther and Rakeem Walker.
Okay, I have to say it. Going off script. One of my first jobs when I came to New York was as a tour guide. Yes, really. I worked as a tour guide and I loved it. I can't remember the company that I worked for, but I was taking large groups and herding them to Staten Island and, not Staten Island, Liberty Island. Listen to me. It's been a low-carb day. Help me, somebody. Okay, Liberty Island and Ellis Island, and it was incredible. It was incredible. Some of the best days of my New York time here. So, I just thought I'd say that. Just thought I'd share. I'm not from New York, I'm from the South, but I am one of you. Without further ado, back to the script. Can you imagine New York City without the Metropolitan Opera or Yankee Stadium?
Can you imagine it without its Art Deco architecture or literary societies?
It's 40 Broadway theaters.
100 plus museums.
It's thousands of restaurants.
It's 9 professional sports teams.
Actually, we have 8 professional sports teams and the Mets. Let that sink in. The point is that the city is its culture. Without culture, there's nothing left.
And the good news is that by consuming the city's culture, you also contribute to it. Writing is an art, but so is reading. Playing music is an art, but so is listening. Simply by being here, everyone in this room becomes an ingredient in the city's culture.
Give yourselves a round of applause. The nominees for Outstanding Achievement in Support of New York City Culture are
The Art Deco Society of New York, the Broadway League,
Create New York City and Harlem Late Night Jazz. And the GANYC Apple Award goes to... Don't screw this up, Warren, baby. First one's out, come on. Counting on you.
all right, La La Land. No. The Art Deco Society of New York.
I can honestly say with fellow nominees like that, I am truly delightfully surprised to be standing here. I could be biased, but I think when you think about New York City culture, it's hard not to think about Art Deco. It's hard not to think about it's hard not to think about speakeasies and flappers and bootleggers. And then not to mention the architecture. There's the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building. There's different areas like Rockefeller Center, Central Park West, downtown Brooklyn, downtown, so many different places. It goes on and on and on. Art Deco, this international style, is actually so far-reaching that it actually even made it out to Staten Island. And I'm not even saying that it just rode the ferry back and forth to see the Statue of Liberty. It actually stayed, so I think we can all agree that it counts. So I want to thank Roberta Newsom, ASNY's devoted president and fearless leader, for her dedication to furthering ASNY mission. I also want to thank Tony Robbins, ASNY's vice president and our very own guiding spirit. I want to thank our board of directors and all of our members who join us in celebrating New York's rich Art Deco heritage. But most importantly, I want to thank all of you for helping to encourage people to see this city and its diverse heritage in a new way. Thank you for guiding others to take a moment to look up and become inspired by the world around them. Thank you.
we all know that the key to keeping a city beautiful is more than thin glass rectangles. Our next award is for Outstanding Achievement in Support of New York City Preservation. To present, he is an alumnus of Columbia's Graduate Historic Preservation Program and the author of Harlem Lost and Found. She is an art director and brand consultant serving as steering committee co-chair for the Working Harbor Committee. Please welcome Mr. Michael Henry Adams and Ms. May Armstrong.
Good evening, everyone. A Russian novelist, Fyodor Dostoevsky, he is reported to have said that everything old seems better. Now, I don't know that that's always necessarily the case, but the thing of it is when there's something that's extraordinary and it's old, as is so often the case in New York, the thing that's so marvelous about landmarks here is that they make us feel wonderful no matter what our age.
And Irish folk musician Pete St. John said, "I can no longer stay and watch the new glass cages spring up along the quay."
Well, although St. John was talking about Dublin and Dostoevsky was speaking about Moscow, whether you're a guide or a preservationist or just an ordinary citizen of New York, you know that there's tremendous importance in the preservation of these wonderful treasures that make our city so special.
All around the world, a balance between the old and new, between progress and preservation, is struck as people fight to protect their civic treasures.
And so, you know, what that means is that these things are so special that we've finally gotten to a place that even though we've lost great treasures like Penn Station, that it's unlikely that the Parthenon will become a parking lot.
And hopefully Big Ben won't chime over a big box store.
And we hope that Versailles will not make way for Versace.
And that the Wailing Wall won't be next door to a Walmart.
Thank goodness.
I know.
Tonight's nominees all contribute in their own efforts to maintain the cultural pride and pleasure in the city that we all love, despite gentrification, greed, and displacement.
So tonight, the nominees for Outstanding Achievement in Support of New York City Preservation are the Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation, the Murray Hill Neighborhood Association,
The New York Preservation Archive, which recorded me. Oh my goodness, forgive me. And Jennifer Wilson of Sisters Uptown Bookstore.
So the Guides Association of New York City Award for New York City Preservation goes to
The Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation.
So unfortunately, the Greenwich Village Society couldn't be with us tonight, so we are going to accept their award in their stead and make sure it gets to them.
Of course, the Guides Association of New York City is all about tourism. It's no secret that tourism is one of the top 4 biggest industries in New York. To present the award for Outstanding Achievement in Support of New York City Tourism, we have 2 shining examples of the association's original focus on multilingual guiding for an international community. She is from Japan, and he is from Puerto Rico. Please welcome Sumiko Mizumoto and Eric Ramos Rodriguez.
Buenas tardes, señorita Sumiko.
Konnichiwa, Eric-san.
You look lovely tonight.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
Muchas gracias.
I'm very happy to presenting with you tonight.
Should we proceed in English now? Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes, our use of language is part of what we offer to our guests on tour.
But even as international tourism is down and domestic tourism is up, we soldier on because no matter where we are from, or what language we speak, we are tough and strong New Yorkers.
Just like 4 nominees for outstanding achievement in support of New York City tourism. Each one shows the best face of New York to our owners, guests.
Whether they are government agencies or they are private businesses.
Whether they provide food, transportation, entertainment, or opportunity.
They are all made themselves indispensable to the tourism industry in the city.
And the nominees are Everett Hill Concessions at the center of the Conservation Museum.
The Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment.
NYC and Company Tourism Ready Training Program.
NYC Ferry Expansion.
And the GANYC Apple Awards goes to
NYC and Company Tourism Ready.
Accepted for NYC Ms. Kelly.
Thank you all so much. This is an amazing award. We just want to say, as you all know, tourism is vital to the economy of New York City. It is the number 6 industry here in the city. We welcomed over 61 million visitors last year. It supports 390,000 jobs. And almost more importantly, when people visit New York City, it gives them an opportunity to understand our culture. And it gives us an opportunity when we welcome these visitors to understand their culture. And I think that's the most important part of tourism. And everyone here in the audience, you are the most important part of that equation, because you are the ones who greet our visitors on the front lines and make them feel special and make them feel welcome. So we're extremely grateful to all of you tonight, as well as the other honorees.
Just want to thank you all for your cooperation in helping us, particularly with the Tourism Ready program. We have many guys that have participated. It's a free program, and many of those that have participated are here in the audience tonight. So thank you.
Many of you may know the story about Gershwin being inspired to write Rhapsody in Blue by the sounds that he heard at Grand Central Terminal. It's a reminder that sound is as meaningful a way to experience New York City as taste or sight or touch. And with that in mind, our next award is for Outstanding Achievement in Radio, Podcasts, Audio, and Spoken Word. And to present, we have a gentleman who is asked for sound bites probably a lot more often than the rest of us are. That's because he happens to be a city councilman. Please welcome the Honorable Ben Kalos.
Good evening.
I'm your constituent.
I'm Councilmember Ben Kalis, represent the Upper East Side and Roosevelt Island, and I am hoping that you will take folks on the tram ride, which is much better than that ferry ride anyway. But please come to the district, it's absolutely great. New York City is where everyone comes to make their voices heard, and if you don't ask them for their opinion, they'll give it to you anyway. Whether in government, in business, in the arts, or any other field, New Yorkers are always expressing themselves and seeking to increase their voices' reach. Whether on the airwaves or on the internet, radio is one of the most powerful platforms for anything a New Yorker has to say. They say radio is making a comeback. But those of us who have used it to express a belief, promote or defend legislation, or celebrate progress, we know radio has never left. The nominees for Outstanding Achievement in Radio and Podcasts are Cityscape, WFUV, Housing Notebook, WBAI, and full disclosure, I have been on that one. Our Streets, Our Stories, Brooklyn. Soundcheck, WNYC, and the song we have met in Bullet. And the Guides Association of New York City Apple Award goes to Cityscape, hosted by George Bedarka.
Hi everyone, my name's Caroline Rotante and I'm a junior year journalism student at Fordham University, and I've had the privilege with working at FUV since freshman year and working with our host George Bedarka. At Fordham University, I think George does a fabulous job in the radio station to grow and actually care about each individual student, and tonight he's doing so, and that's why he could not make it here. He is probably teaching one of my peers how to use the system that we edit our podcast on. So George has long said that New York City runs through his veins. George is a Bronx native who was raised in Yonkers, and when he was in college, George attended Fordham as well. He would take the express bus from Westchester to Manhattan for his internship at WLTW Light FM. He would always feel a rush when the bus rolled down Fifth Avenue. He would draw on the energy emanating from Central Park and dream of one day living at one of the apartments across the street. Luckily for George, he's gotten a peek inside many of New York City's dream homes on interviews for Cityscape. And his dream of living in one of them is still very much alive. Because in New York City, it's all about dreams and perseverance. For George and I, New York City is a place of endless discoveries. Its history, present, and future is fuel for our souls. Producing this show has taken us deep below Grand Central Terminal and inside some of the coolest venues in town, like the Gold Bar in Nolita. We went there in a recent episode. We've met a vast array of unique and interesting characters, from the woman who runs a troll doll museum out of her Lower East Side apartment basement, yes, to a sanitation worker who belted out show tunes as he picked up the trash in the morning. We've also had the amazing opportunity to work with many of you. Many tour guides have contributed their great knowledge to this show since George started hosting it 17 years ago. We share your passion and appreciate every time that you take out of your day to share your insight of the city on our program. That is said, that is this award as much for us as it is for you. Thank you so much.
Some of us get to travel the world, and some of us let the internet bring the world to us. And then there are the great travel bloggers whose websites allow us to live vicariously through their travels. So to present the award for Outstanding New York City website, we have the founder of Tiger One and TigerOne.com. Please welcome Jungwon Eun.
Over the years, the internet has become the most effective, efficient, far-reaching tool for any communication on Earth. Whether you're buying a tour or selling one, and advertising a show or reserving a ticket, planning a date, reserving a table, booking a flight, you're doing it all online. We live in a virtual world, And this is very interesting too, that everything is changing very rapidly in terms of technology. We're heading to augmented reality, we're heading into virtual reality. So everybody has to start paying attention, especially this is so critical in times of change. And we use the virtual world to make real world that makes us more accessible. Now tonight, the nominees for Outstanding New York City Website are Curved NY, Amy Plitt, City Lab, Robert Gold, Detonian in Manhattan, Tom Miller, Spoiled NYC, Pavel Konopenko. And the GANYC Apple Award goes to Curved NY.
And second for Curved, Mr. Nathan Kensinger.
Thank you so much. My name is Nathan Kensinger, and I don't have a speech prepared because I was just informed before this award ceremony that I'd be representing Curved tonight, in case they won. But I'm just going to go off the cuff and say, you know, Curved, I've watched Curved evolve over the past 10 or 15 years from being a very scrappy, local, small website into what they are today. And I do think they are one of the most outstanding websites in New York City currently. You know, we've seen a lot of other websites closing down over the last year. We've lost Gothamist, we've lost DNA Info, we've lost, you know, the New York Times deciding to cover local news in New York City. And so Curved is one of those last websites standing that really writes about New York City. It employs so many excellent reporters, editors, photographers, people who love New York City. I always tell people when they ask, you know, why do I do my photo essays at Curved? I've been doing a photo essay series at Curved for the past 6 years, every 2 weeks. People ask, you know, why do you write for Curved? It's a real estate website, and you're writing about, you know, industrial neighborhoods like Manhattanville, or you're writing about lost creeks often like Queens and Flushing Meadows. And when I think about that, you know, I say, you know, how many other websites would take a chance and like pay someone like me to just wander around New York City and investigate what I find interesting about New York. So I'm happy to accept this award on behalf of Curved, and I hope they have many, many more years of writing about New York City.
According to Google, New York is the most photographed city in the world. Good, the drinks are still working. But it's funny how there's like only one whooping. I mean, this is a crowd that knows that, right? This crowd is the smartest crowd in New York City, you know? Yeah, tell me something I don't know. So presenting the award for Outstanding Achievement in Photography is the chairman of the GANYC Multilingual Guides Committee. Since 2007, he has specialized in photo workshop tours and his famous selfie tour. Known as the hardest working man in the tourism business, please welcome the legendary Ibrahima Diallo.
Whether you are wielding a beautiful Nikon with amazing settings, or a simple cell phone that barely has any printed instruction, everyone likes pictures when they travel to a city like New York. And you don't take pictures, you make a picture. You know, it's a process. The knowledge that you have of your camera, the lighting, the speed, how you manipulate, all of that contributes to creating the final image. Photographers do not just see an image and record it. They record their perspective on it. And when you photograph New York, you are photographing your New York. So Tonight, the nominees for Outstanding Achievement in New York City Photography are for Henry Bendel, Diary Bria Joseph. For Tags by Ewok One, Mast, Osbe, and Spot, Billy Sean. For Flatiron, 100 New York, Rob Talia. For 19th Street, The Secret Lives of Buildings, Marc Yankus. And the GANYC Apple Awards goes to Marc Yankus, 19th Street, The Secret Lives of
I'm not used to standing up here making speeches, but I've been a photographer and an artist my whole life. I grew up in New York City. When I was about 12 years old, my stepfather, my alcoholic stepfather, said to me to go out and play in traffic. Instead of playing in traffic, I walked around the city, got an opportunity to explore it, and now I go to all the different boroughs. I go to Manhattan, I go to Brooklyn, I go to Queens, I go to Staten Island, and I've been documenting the different boroughs of New York City for quite a while. In my current artwork, I seek to document New York's iconic, lost and forgotten architecture, from humble, small building to soaring skyscrapers, through a form of surreal architectural photography. Through this, more people just might see an alternative universe right in front of them, one that is very beautiful and otherworldly. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the first winner of the Guiding Spirit Award, Mr. Lee Gelber.
Good evening, friends, colleagues. This is a very special night for all of us, and I thank you. As you gathered, I had the pleasure of being part of this celebration and serving on the awards committee since the very beginning, when they were just an idea. After our first ceremony, I declared the GANYC Apple Awards to be the single greatest volunteer effort, and certainly the greatest GANYC program to which I have ever had the honor to contribute. But I could not have known that the committee had a trick up its sleeve, with a plan to create, in our second year, the Guiding Spirit Award, and that they intended to give it to me. But I was deeply grateful. And I love the idea of the Guiding Spirit Award because it celebrates one of the most important aspects of our association and our profession, collegiality. And when GANYC members think of collegiality, they think of Susan and Art Zuckerman. Give away some old secrets now. I first met the Zuckermans when they were enrolled in my class called How to Be a Tour Guide that I gave for the Learning Annex. Not only did they have a thirst for knowledge, but they had a thirst for the friendship of their colleagues. Of all the people in our professional community, no one understands that concept of community better than Susan and Art. They wound up hiring me to give a tour for the guests at their son's bar mitzvah. To this day, I've never taken a tour of theirs, but it feels as though I have. When you get to know the couple, it is very easy to get an idea of what their tour is like. That is the depth of their collegiality. For years, when members of GANYC were arguing over whether the guide licensing test should be harder or easier, whether membership in the association should be open or closed, whether more guides meant fewer jobs to go around, the Zuckermans loudly and frequently espoused the philosophy that other guides are not our competitors, they are our family. They gave courses on marketing strategy and coined the term co-opetition. Just recently, they held a big seminar for their colleagues called, I didn't know that, all about sharing our knowledge. Not a single attendee gave it anything less than glowing reviews. But if you really want to understand why Susan and Art are so widely and dearly admired in this association, look no further than 1 year back. When New York sent 5 delegates to the World Federation of Tourist Guide Associations convention to represent our city and to bid on the chance to host a future conference, the meeting was held in the Iranian capital of Tehran. Under the best of circumstances, political circumstances certainly, Americans attending a conference in Iran involves jumping through more hoops than usual. But on this occasion, some of our dearest friends, mentors, and proteges in the association were in that country when a certain resident of an eponymous black tower on Fifth Avenue, I wonder who he was talking about, thought it would be fun to institute a travel ban. On the day our colleagues came home, and bear in mind that one of them bears an Islamic name and has an African complexion and a green card. And while we were worried about them, all we were worried was especially about him. The Zuckermans came to the airport in a van and gave everyone a ride to their respective homes. Nobody had asked them, nobody had suggested it, nobody had approached them. They simply showed up. They showed up and bent over backwards to make sure that each one of our friends made it home. That is collegiality. Wise men once said, we tend to love those who love us. And it is no surprise that we see Susan and Art as guiding spirits when they have spent every day of their careers looking for new ways to express their love for this profession in this city. Let's have a look at the Zuckermans and what they had to say about guiding in New York. Susan and Marc Zuckerman.
First, I want to tell everyone, honestly, I'm very disappointed. Last year, I got a chance to be the hat check person and pick up the coats, and this year they wouldn't let me do this. Thank you. Also, when Matt Baker came to our home and we reviewed everything today, I swore he was going to show one of the pictures. A couple of years ago, we did a tour for Inside Edition, and we were doing tours of New York City for people with dogs. Ever do a dog tour in New York City? They have dogs. Well, they wound up filming us for 8 hours. It was a 10-minute segment, Inside Edition, nationwide. And the next day, the producer called me up and said, "Art, are you willing to do what you said to my crew the day before?" I said, "Fine." I was hoping the picture would be up here, but it wasn't. It was me taking a shower with my dog. Now, to tell you honestly, I got an email from one of our people I haven't spoken to in 10 years, and he says, remember the shower scene with someone, me and the dog? And he says, "I thought the scene in Psycho in the shower was terrifying." So thank everyone for giving us awards. It's an honor. You guys are great. We do learn from everyone. And I always tell people, Susan's the smart one in the family, I'm the shy one.
But we really want to thank GANYC. We've learned a lot from everyone in GANYC. We're very honored to have this award, especially given by Lee, he's our guiding spirit, and one of the reasons we really got into guiding. And we love you all, and anything we can do, we would love to do more. Thank you.
It's nice to be in this room. It's one of the reasons I like New York City, and it's nice to be in this room as well. I mean, there's some really fine people in the world that are doing some really wonderful things, Susan, that's fantastic, just watching that slideshow. Well, everything is written down. You probably know that, right? Nearly everything, except for my script. I haven't read a word from a script, of course. Nearly everything we do in entertainment is written down, of course. Whether you act or sing or MC or guide, we owe a debt to the writers who provide the blueprint. And this is a good opportunity to give a shout out to Matt Baker, who has been the writer.
I stole every word.
And the good tour guide does. Where would this city be without its great books? Some of the best bookstores in the world too, right? Woo! We want to recognize outstanding achievement in New York City book writing fiction. She is the author of Nicholas Cook, Actor, Soldier, Physician, Priest. And since then she has published 4 more novels that have been translated into 5 languages. He is a playwright whose historical dramas include Kunstler, The Value of Names, and Flyovers. And he has won prizes from the Joseph Jefferson Award in Chicago to the Outer Critics Circle Award here in New York. Please welcome Ms. Stephanie Cowell and Mr. Jeffrey Sweet.
Good evening, Stephanie.
Good evening, Jeffrey.
And I was just going to go off script to say one small thing. As long as you're honoring writing, I'm a playwright, and I'm hoping that you guys will consider honoring best drama about New York, because what is Hamilton, if not one of the best shows about So, Stephanie, you've written about Shakespeare, Monet, and Mozart.
And Acacia.
But we're here to talk about fiction.
Well, you've written about racism, McCarthyism, and World War II.
And William Kunstler.
And those are hardly fictional subjects. They're as much part of our lives as the historical figures I write about.
Of course, your novel, Claude and Camille, is no more just about Monet than my play, Court Martial at Fort Devens, is about Fort Devens.
And tonight's nominees for Outstanding Achievement in New York City Book Writing Fiction are about a lot more than the city itself. They are about mystery, justice, competition, finding peace.
They are about cultural identity, history, and the meaning of home.
And the nominees are
Arbitrary Stupid Goal by Tamara Shamson.
Golden Hill, a novel of old New York by Francis Bufford.
Niche War on Rivington Street by Joanne Oppenheimer, illustrated by John Davis.
The Leavers, a novel by Lisa Cove.
And the GANYC Apple Award goes to
Joanne Oppenheim and John Davis for the Niche War on Rivington
Hi, I'm not Joanne Oppenheim. I'm her granddaughter, Alexandra. She was traveling and could not make it home in time. But thank you so much for the award. My grandmother worked hard on this book, which is based on a true story, and thank you so much.
Of course, it can all be fiction. While some tour guides say, never let the truth stand in the way of a good story. Or as my Aunt Tootie would say, any story worth telling is worth exaggerating. Others might bristle at that idea, never repeating any tidbit that hasn't been documented or checked or double-checked or confirmed. So to present Outstanding Achievement in New York City Book Writing Nonfiction, she is the author of the upcoming book, Devil's Mile, The Rich, Gritty History of the Bowery. He is the author of the upcoming book, The Boss of the Grips, a look at early 20th century New York through the lens of the Harlem Redcap Porters at Grand Central. Please welcome Ms. Alex Sparberg-Alexiou and Mr. Eric K. Washington.
Tonight's nominees for Outstanding Achievement in New York City Book Writing have unearthed some magnificent stories.
Indeed they have. Two of them come from different perspectives on the amazing women who helped shape this city.
And two of them are about the far less pleasant topics of war and illness.
What's the difference?
Fair question.
The nominees for Outstanding Achievement in New York City Book Writing Nonfiction are Bellevue, 3 Centuries of Medicine and Mayhem at America's Most Storied Hospital by David Oshinsky.
Ladies of the Ticker, Women in Wall Street from the Gilded Age to the Great Depression.
The Women Who Made New York by Julie Skelton.
World War I New York, a guide to the city's enduring ties to the Great War. And the GANYC Apple Award goes to
Kevin C. Fitzpatrick.
Well, Francis McDormand need to stay away from this one. For those that know, I've been nominated for 3 years in a row, for 3 books in a row. To my guides, this morning I did a 9:15 statue tour, followed by Ellis Island. And it would have been great if guests didn't need to go to the bathroom. We missed 3 boats. And while I'm standing in the cold, to make myself feel better, I thought, well, what would I say if I actually won tonight? After being nominated for 3 straight years. And what I want to say is this award means a lot to me because it's voted on by my fellow guides. And my book in this category, it's the only guidebook. Just as last year, my book on Governor's Island was a guidebook, and the previous year was about the Algonquin Roundtable as a guidebook. And I think of these books as books that guides can use to flavor their own walking tours or bus tours of information. And so that makes winning this award a little bit special. And last year, when I lost to the Bowery Boys, they paid it forward by saying how much they liked my Governor's Island book, and I want to say that to Julie for her book, for including two of my favorite people, Jane Grant and Dorothy Parker. For those who don't know, I've been running DorothyParker.com for 20 years, the Dorothy Parker Society. So for her to include Mrs. Parker in that group of illustrious women in that fantastic book, thank you very much. And just a second, Mac. It's been 3 years, man. This is the centennial of the Great War, and so I dedicate this award to the 116,000 men and women who gave their lives in World War I. Thank you very much.
Go home and read all the books on my shelf that I haven't read yet. There's just so many great books in the world. My problem is I don't have the time to read books as that I would like, because we're busy New Yorkers, like all of us are here. So we actually have a wonderful category that fits people like me and many of us here. Those that settle for the shorter format of an article, essay, or a series. To present outstanding achievement in article, essay, series writing, please welcome the newsletter editor for the National Federation of Tourist Guide Associations, Mr. Matthew Baker.
The last person you would expect to go off script in a show like this is the guy who wrote it, but I'm going to go off script because Stokes was just gracious enough. Well, he's been gracious all evening, Brian Stokes but he was gracious enough to mention the National Federation of Tourist Guide Associations, so I would like to acknowledge that New York City has a special guest here in the house tonight, the Vice President of the National Federation of Tourist Guide Associations, Mr. Nick Svetkovich. Now, Nick is from Philadelphia, but we're not going to hold that against him. I hear they had some kind of sporting event recently. I don't know much about, but oh, that's right, we got Matt Apter in the house too. He's a recovering Philadelphian. Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, it's a great organization, the National Federation of Tourist Guide Associations, and I'm very honored to be introduced as the newsletter editor for that organization, because even volunteer editing a small quarterly newsletter for a trade association, I'm very proud to be a member of the press on any level. As guides, we are historians, we are sociologists, we are news hounds, and any good piece of writing, be it news or any other form, can move us to laughter, it can move us to tears, and God willing, can move us to change. Especially now, in an age when the government references fake news, it falls to the news to reference fake government. So, the 4 journalists nominated for outstanding achievement in essay, article, and series writing have tackled subjects that range from journalism itself, to politics, to our city's infrastructure, to the ever-looming specter of urban gentrification. And the nominees are R.C. Baker for Stopping the Presses, The Village Voice. Jane Eisner for Looking Forward, the Jewish Daily Forward. Nathan Kensinger for Searching for New York City's Lost Soul, Curb, New York. Emily Nonko for Robert Moses and the Decline of the New York City Subway System, Curb, New York. And the GANYC Apple Award goes to Emily Nonko.
this. Thank you so much. This is meaningful. I'm not just a writer. I give tours at Grand Central Terminal 3 in Minster Park since thanks to Curbed and Amy Plitt, who are already recognized tonight. She was my editor on this story. She believed in the idea and made it 100 times better. That's what a good editor does. And I hope this resonated with people. If you read it, I think that we've seen a lot of great reporting around the New York City transit system. It's the lifeblood of the city, and it's failing us. So I hope that writers can somehow have an impact on making it better and strengthening it for the city. So thank you very much.
Congratulations, Emily. Our next lovely lady has been guiding tours for 15 years and is the owner of New York City Star Hospitalities. She is also a dancer and a dance educator. My wife is a dancer as well, so I have a soft spot for dancers and dance educators, and gives a young artist dance experience tour, exploring the history of different dance genres in the city. Please welcome Ms. Naya Bauman.
Good evening. In the words of Lin-Manuel Miranda, death doesn't discriminate between the sinners and the saints. And we are reminded of this when we pause our celebration to remember the great people and places of New York City that we lost in the last year. We say goodbye to the luminaries who inspired us to strive in this great city, and to the friends and colleagues we knew and saw every day. We say goodbye to the legendary institutions and to beloved little spots on the corner. And tonight, we will also not discriminate between the sinners and the saints. Let us remember to show equal love and hold applause until the end of the memorial. Thank you.
It's always very moving to see our favorite places and favorite people as well that are now woven permanently into the fabric of this city. Rest in peace, all. The reason that we have jobs in the first place, the reason we take the trouble to work for a living is so we can feed ourselves and feed our families. So what award could be more basic, more fundamental than Outstanding Achievement in New York City Food? Here to present, we have a Culinary Institute of America trained chef. She is the founder of La New Yorkina Mexican Ice Cream and Sweets Company. And Dough Donuts. Yeah. Doesn't that sound good? As well as a James Beard nominated cookbook author. Please welcome Fanny Gerson.
Good evening. Buenas noches. Each year, the GANYC Apple Awards has presented Outstanding Achievement in New York City Food to an old staple of the restaurant industry, a cultural landmark that was celebrating a century of food and drink and the becoming of a culinary institution. But this year, it's different. This year, for the first time, all 4 nominees are new kids on the block. They are first-generation activists who recognize food's social importance and use both expertise and love of food to promote inclusion and to bring people and cultures together. They are the movers and shakers that celebrate New York City food, not for its history, but for its future. And the nominees are Breaking Bread, NYC. James Beard Supper Club for Queer Women. Klaus Mayer and the Melting Pot Foundation. Chef Harold Villarosa and the Insurgo Project. And the GANYC Apple Award goes to Breaking Bread, NYC.
And something for Breaking Bread, Mr. Scott Wiener.
Wow. This is extremely unexpected, but so was Breaking Bread NYC. Breaking Bread NYC is something that happened because there was an announcement made by the US government, and a bunch of us who are tour guides didn't like it. And so we do what tour guides do, and we improvised. And we made something up, and we executed a tour essentially overnight. And it was incredible. We took people to restaurants that represented cultural groups who we thought were under pressure. And the result of that was something that wasn't just myself. It was several people from several different organizations and tour companies in New York. So I'm accepting this award on behalf of all of us. Steph Mantis, who's in the audience with me tonight. Amy Vanderleen from Foods of New York Tours. Myra Alperson from Nashwa. Dave Friedenberg from Famous Fat Dave's Eating Tour on the Wheels of Steel. And Jeff Horlick from Queen's Custodian. And what we did was raise money for some organizations. So I want to give them a shout out. All the money that we raised from our tours went to CARE, the Center for American Islamic Relations, the IRC, and HIAS. So, on behalf of all those organizations, thank you so much to GANYC for recognizing this. And all I want to say is that as tour guides, we see something that needs to be done, and we do it. And so, thank you so much. This is huge.
Our next presenter spent 24 years as Director of Education, Public Programs Coordinator, and Curator, and the Bruce Museum of Arts and Science. Today she is a licensed New York City tour guide and member of the GANYC Certification Committee. Please welcome Ms. Robin Gard.
New York is a literary city where we can read all about those that came before us. It's a theatrical city where we can see brilliant artists interpret worlds far away or deep in the imagination. It's a musical city where we can hear the rhythms of places we visited or geniuses we've never known. But there's a reason why New York is so well known as a city of museums. Museums are where you don't necessarily have to read about it or hear about it or see people interpret it. The actual object you're there to enjoy is right in front of you. You can see it, you can contemplate it, you can study it, and you can bond with it. Now in New York City, whether the museum celebrates science, art, history, or any other cultural treasure, the opportunity to stand face to face with a brilliant exhibition is unparalleled. I'd like to congratulate all the nominees. This was a really tough category. But the nominees for Outstanding Achievement in New York City Museum Exhibitions are, for Black Power, the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. For the Jazz Age, American Style in the 1920s, the Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Museum of Design. For New York at its core, the Museum of the City of New York. And for Sweet, Sour, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get it wrong. Sour, Sweet, Bitter, and Spicy, the story of Chinese food and identity in America, the Museum of Chinese in America. And the GANYC Apple Award goes to New York at its core, the Museum of the City of New
So thank you so much for this, and it was great company to be in, and thrilling to be up here. This was the project of a lifetime for me, really a culmination of a career that's been now 17 years at the Museum of the City of New York, but it was much more about all the other people who contributed. Over 250 people are listed just on the panel that credits the creation of New York at its core, and some of them are in this room, some of them are you. We're really proud at the Museum of the City of New York, with the opening of New York at its core, to finally give this city what so many other cities have, and what we have never had here, but have long deserved, which is a permanent exhibition about ourselves and our place. Putting it together was thrilling and challenging and heartbreaking. We kept thinking about all the things that we couldn't include and all the great ideas that we had to leave on the cutting room floor. And we were terrified about the modesty of the space that we had and the enormity of the story that we had to tell. And we were terrified of what everyone would find missing in the tough choices that we had to make. But of all the tough audiences that we had, you are the toughest, and the ones whose opinion we value so deeply, because we share a mission. It was the mission that was described at the beginning of this program, and we're all in it together to tell the story of the greatest city on earth. So we're so proud that you selected this project for this award. It really means a lot, and thank you. Congratulations to everyone.
I just want to second Sarah's comments, and thank you so much to everybody here from GANYC who have been such great supporters of the museum, as members, volunteers, tour guides, bringing people to the museum. So thank you all so much.
All right, our final presentation of the evening is going to be presented by someone who has made her living as an innkeeper, a restaurateur, and a tour guide, among many other things. She has worked at the Public Theater and its Second Stage. She has touched lives in Italy, India, and the wilds of New Jersey. But she remains her native Brooklyn's own. She is now the owner of Kristen's New York's Tours and a Brooklyn Experience Please put your hands together for Ms. Kristen Singleton Ferrari.
Y'all. I forgot my phone. I was supposed to have a selfie moment. Okay. Let me declare right now, just to start, y'all look marvelous. I've been watching everybody in the audience and hanging out outside. So, we always run around wearing khakis and polo shirts with somebody's name on it. And it's really nice for us to all be dressed up tonight. On to the main event. Yeah. I'm here to present this evening's award for Lifetime Achievement. Lifetime Achievement Awards are awarded by various organizations to recognize contributions over the whole of one's career, and rather than in addition to or a single contribution. The Apollo Theater opened in 1913 as a burlesque theater, and later with the co-owner, who was Frank Schiffman, it became a milestone attribution to the possibility for African Americans to not only perform, but also to enjoy performances by their peers. Names from the past like Ella Fitzgerald in 1934, Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan, wow. And believe it or not, one of their best-selling tickets, Mr. Tony Bennett, just to name a few. The stage was a launching ground for many newer artists, many that some of us have seen. 9-year-old Michael Jackson performed at the behest of Gladys Knight. And of course, the wall, at the back of the stage is covered in names of those who have graced the stage of the Apollo Theater in the past. There's one name since the 1960s that stands alone, and that is Mr. Billy Mitchell. At 10 years old, I went to see a group called Funkadelic. We were sitting in the balcony and we was jamming. How you doing? Yes. There weren't nobody in the theater, okay? I went to the restroom and I remember the theater was freezing. There was paint peeling from the walls, and there was frozen water in the toilets. The next day, the theater was shut down for renovations permanently. But Billy consulted as a historian and an in-house expert on more than one of those extensive makeovers at the Apollo Theater. As a young man, Billy was introduced to the Apollo, but by way of the back door to the theater. One day, he was sent from the Bronx on a little errand to meet his aunt, who lived across the street. She was lending the family some funds, to help out. Standing and waiting, a man appeared and said 4 words that would change his life. It was Mr. Frank Schiffman, by the way. Hey, you want to make some money? Billy began by running errands, getting newspapers and coffee, or shining shoes for the likes of Marvin Gaye and James Brown. How you doing? Right? Those men actually grilled him about his education. They wanted to know, hey, you've been hanging out here a little bit too much. What's going on with school? If you don't get a good education or some good grades, you don't get to work here. So, guess what? When he needed to further that education, they were there. Could you imagine being able to say that Marvin Gaye sent you to business school? Yeah, well, Mr. Apollo can say that. Now, Billy Mitchell today is the tour director, the historian, the renovations consultant, the PR for the Apollo Theater, and he's had quite an array of experiences, let me tell you. My goodness, he actually accompanied the group Korn around the city of New York. Korn, we're talking rock, okay? He was like, man, them cats was crazy, Well, he even managed to host the infamous amateur night at the Apollo. The contenders come out and they're judged by the audience, right? So we got the singers, we got the dancers, we got the magicians, But all of those comedians coming up onto the stage, they would rub that little tree of hope, trying to make sure that it was going to bring them some luck. But when they bombed, The audience would boo like crazy, and the Sandman would come tap dancing his way over across the stage and drag you off, you know? I just recently heard about Richard Pryor's son being on stage and he got booed, you know? Poor thing. Steve Harvey was shaking his head going, embarrassing. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say that tomorrow, the 13th, actually marks my 8th year as a tour guide here in New York City. My career started with a company, the Levy's Unique New York, and it was with student travel groups, you know? I took hundreds of people to the Apollo Theater. And once I had 200 people in a marching band. I took up the whole theater, it was amazing. But each and every time I have been inspired by Billy Mitchell and all of the stories that he could tell so personably. All of us would be riveted, you know, to things from his own poverty, from where he came, being called Stinky Boy, you know, because he was wearing the hand-me-down clothes, and meeting celebrities, and of course, explain with passion the origin of the Harlem Tree of Hope. You know, the stump was originally a tree in Harlem where many musicians and artists would go and touch on 7th Avenue before they would go and play at a venue. He'd speak of his lovely wife. Oh yeah, and the family, Sunday dinner with the in-laws and everybody. And of course, he had a first-hand story of a celebrity or two. Youngsters would get their chance to come and perform on the stage at the Apollo. And he was always very encouraging. The announcements would range from, ladies and gentlemen, here we have the J. Crew. He'd just make up something, you know, as he went along. And here's from wherever USA, the Grand Slam team of the dancers, the Red Mittens. Okay. Once a young lady, I remember, actually brought tears to our eyes. She was reciting, and then I rise. She began reciting, and she couldn't remember the words. Billy stopped her from across the stage, and he walked over, and he said, honey, just take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. Just start all over again. And she felt that comfortable, and she knew that it was possible that she could start all over. And she began her speech, and she delivered it with such pride. At the end, the entire audience exploded in applause. Sometimes I would arrive and I'd find some work going on in the theater. You know, some banging and some booming. A show was moving in, no show was moving out. And Billy Mitchell would make it okay. Once, with no electricity allowed on stage, he stood there and he said, ladies and gentlemen, you know, behind this stage, right there on that wall. And the whole audience just waited. He finished his speech, and then he guided them through the backstage without any problems, keeping them safe. And they enjoyed the entire show for over 50 years. 50 years. Billy Mitchell has been a beacon, a shining example of what studies, what hard work means. And he contributed his whole career and his continued efforts to the preservation of what the Apollo is to us today. His energy, and it's just relentless, his energy, I have to say. But his love and his kindness to everyone, celebrity or just us common folk, is exactly the same. For his lifetime achievement, ladies and gentlemen, let's get on up. Come on, let's give it up. For a man that I can call Mr. 3 times, Mr. Billy, Mr. Apollo, Mr. Billy Mitchell.
This is amazing. Thank you so much, family. Thank you so much. I am so overwhelmed by this applause and everything. I am so glad to be here, but I'd like to first thank GANYC for this award ceremony. I'd like to thank all the nominees and all the people that will actually receive an award. This is a special night. I have my family here. I give it up for my sugar worker, my wife. That's my girl. telling you. We've been together 43 years. 43 years. We'll celebrate our 33rd anniversary this August, and that's our baby girl, my youngest. That's my daughter Brittany. Shout out my friend, that's my nephew Stephen. It's my brother Stephen. That's my mentor Billy Thomas, who also mentored me and Denzel when we were little kids. He's the reason why I am who I am, and Denzel's because this man. Stand up, Billy. Everybody knows Billy Thomas is. That's Billy Thomas. He still mentors me to this very day. Denzel as well, and my other brother, radio show host and businessman Reggie Mitchell. That's my family here. Folks, I just want to, those of us that are guides, we have a responsibility, not just to take people around, to take them around and educate them and give them the truth, not sensationalize on stuff and tell his story. It's important to tell the truth, and the truth sometimes is not told. Sometimes his story can be, enough people say the same thing over a period of time, it becomes the gospel. That doesn't mean it's the truth. So we have a responsibility. I am very passionate about the truth. I'm very, very passionate. I can't go to certain areas and talk about something I do not know anything about. But if you come to the Apollo Theater, I got you. I got you. Because I have been there since I was 15 years old. And if God blesses me and allows me to live a couple of more weeks, I'll be 68 years old, right? So I've been at that theater off and on, holding many, many positions. And I came to management. I've been there through the Schiffmans, Frank Schiffman, whose son Bobby, I'm still in contact with. They ran the theater from 1934 till 1977, right? And then one of my mentors and dear friends, Percy Sutton, and some people, they bought the building in 1982 and ran it until 1991. And then the state of New York took the building over. The state owns the Apollo right now, and we run it as a non-for-profit foundation. I think my supervisor here, is Laura Green in the building? That is my supervisor right there. The associate producer at the Apollo Theater, and Miss Sharice Williams. Give it up for my crew. When you go to work and you don't have a boss down your back, or micromanaging what you do, it makes it really good to go to work. When you work with incredible people, past and present, that work with me at the Apollo Theater, it feels good to go to work. Laura doesn't give me no, she just let me do my thing, Every now and then she'll say, Billy, you gotta step it up a little bit. And I need that. Because sometimes with my self-centeredness, I think it's all about me. And sometimes, you gotta be put in check, and that's why I married who this lady is. She keeps me in check, man. Because if it was up to me, my head would be so big. Because sometimes people, they know what I do at the Apollo and how long I've been there. I've given tours to everybody from Michelle Obama, who actually convinced me to write my autobiography. Miss Obama. I have a book out called They Call Me Mr. Apollo. And Miss Obama came to the theater, contacted me about 10 years ago to bring her daughter and her mother and some friends to the theater, and she suggested, said, why don't you write your autobiography? I said, ma'am, I've never written a book, and besides, who cares, And she convinced me, because other people have been saying that. Why don't you tell your story? Why don't you tell your story? And the book came out and is doing very well. So if you want a copy, a signed autograph copy, come by the Apollo. I'll hook you up. All right? Hook you up. I am so pleased that my friends got an award today. Marc, Zuckerman, and Susan. Those are my people, guys. All the tour guys that are in this room. Those of you who've been to the Apollo Theater, we're close, man. We tour guides and guides. We're very close people. And for those who've never been to the Apollo Theater, you owe it to yourself to come to the Apollo Theater. There is so much that we're doing there, man. Don't miss out. Our programming is outstanding. Outstanding. And there's something for everybody. when you come to the Apollo Theater. See, I know a lot of you haven't been up to Harlem in a while. You hear about what's happening in Harlem and things like that. Well, we started it all at the Apollo Theater. We started it. All this redevelopment, all this interest in Harlem, we started it at the Apollo Theater. So you owe it to yourself to come back. I am so grateful. I thank the Creator for even letting me be here tonight with you all. This is a moment, and I'm so glad to share with my family, because I am one of 14 children that my mother had. I was a foster child from age 8 to almost 13 years old. My mom was able to get us back. Some of us reunited with my mother, some were adopted, some were placed in foster care. When I was a young kid, I wanted to be like somebody. My oldest brother. He's all about education, and I used to admire my oldest brother, man. He was very articulate, always hygiene, impeccable, you know. I wouldn't be like my brother Steve. And then as I got older, I found my own identity. Similar to him, I like my hygiene to be impeccable. I now speak for a living, you know. I'm articulate. I received the proper education. He's a self-made man. You know, I used to say, man, my brother, everybody in Mount Vernon, my hometown, used to talk about Steve Mitchell, Billy Thomas. Billy Thomas ran the boys club. I would have been a different person today. Denzel would have been a different person today. I swear to you, had it not been for these men right here. So I share this award, I really do, with my family, my wife Barbara, my baby Brittany, my nephew Stephen Malik. Stephen Malik, he was named after Malcolm X. Malcolm X lived on the same block as my brother and my nephew, and Malcolm was like his godfather. And Billy Thomas. I share this with you and my family. Laura, Sharice, it's my crew, and thank you, GANYC. I really, really appreciate it. This is amazing. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Get on stage. And if you have on your arms, stop running to the ball, let me give you a tour.
Elliot, what a high note to end the evening on. Thank you so much. That is our show. Many thanks to the Apple Awards Committee and all of our sponsors. I'd like to just give a shout out to everybody responsible. If you all wouldn't mind who's putting on this show, all the beautiful music, the slides, the writing, the food, everything. These are very complicated shows to do. Would you all just stand up so we can give you all the love to be recognized? Susan and Tobias, obrigado. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this evening as well. And to all the New York City guides here, I just want to say to all of you, thank you very much for everything that you do. You make this city a better place. I'm not a native New Yorker. My wife is from Wisconsin. She's not a native New Yorker either, but we have one native New Yorker in our family. That is our son, Ellington. And I have to say, before I had him, I thought New York would be the worst place ever to raise a child. And as it turns out, it is the best. It is. I mean, look at this audience. Look how diverse this audience. Look at how many languages are spoken in this audience. You know, New York is the world in microcosm. And you tour guides get to show the visitors here, the rest of the world that comes to New York. You get to share our love of New York with everybody else that comes here, and you get to pass that love of this fabulous city on to another generation. So I'd just like to leave you with this last little thought. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yeah, everybody join me. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, clouds of white. the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of the people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, everybody saying, what a wonderful world. Thanks for making the world a little bit more wonderful, everybody.